You ever have a moment where the world keeps moving, but you're stuck, frozen in a memory you wish you could erase? It was my sister's baby shower. Balloons in soft blush pink floated above the patio. The tables were covered in floral cloths. Little teddy bear centerpieces perched at every corner. Laughter bubbled around us, the scent of vanilla cupcakes and fresh-cut roses floating through the spring air. It should have been perfect. But instead, it turned into the kind of day I can never forget, no matter how hard I try. Nia was radiant, 8 months pregnant, wearing a flowing cream dress that hugged her belly just right. Her curls were pinned up, and she kept brushing her hands over her bump like she was both proud and nervous. I stood next to her, watching as she opened a tiny pair of crocheted baby booties. Her eyes lit up. She smiled wide. For a second, it felt like maybe, just maybe, our family would get through this moment without someone ruining it. But then I saw the look on my mom's face. My mom, Darlene, sharp chin, sharper tongue, arms crossed over her perfectly pressed blouse. She had that familiar smirk, the one she always wore right before she dropped a verbal grenade in the middle of a happy moment. My stomach twisted. I knew that look too well, and just like that, she said it. She's a single mother, probably doesn't even know who the father is. My hands clenched around the edge of the plastic tablecloth. I stared at her, hoping I had misheard. But no, she said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather, like it was a joke, a punchline. Aunt Carol, Mom's younger sister, always eager to ride shotgun on Darlene's insults, chimed in, giggling. She's just collecting sympathy gifts. I swear, the laughter that followed echoed louder than it actually was. The snickers, the nervous titters. I caught eyes glancing at each other, lips twitching, someone trying to hide a smirk behind a wine glass. And Nia? Her face fell, her hands stilled over the baby onesie she was holding. Her eyes dropped, blinking too fast. Her smile cracked, just for a second before she forced it back on like a mask that didn't quite fit. I didn't say anything. I should have. God, I wanted to. But the words caught in my throat, sticky and useless. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. My palms went damp. I looked around, waiting for someone else to step in, to say something, anything. But no one did. Why didn't I speak up? Why did I freeze? Was I so used to Mom's cruelty that I just accepted it? Micah, my son, was sitting quietly beside me, just 8 years old but already too perceptive for his age. He looked up at me with those wide, thoughtful eyes, his brow furrowed like he was trying to make sense of what just happened. He didn't understand the words, not fully, but he understood the tone, the ugliness. I could feel heat rising in my chest, anger and shame tangled so tightly, I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I kept thinking, this is supposed to be a celebration. Why are we letting her ruin it? But the moment passed. Nia cleared her throat, thanked someone for a gift she hadn't even looked at. The guests moved on. The conversation shifted, but the tension hung in the air, thick and invisible. My mom smiled, satisfied, like she'd put Nia back in her place. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the most powerful voice in that yard didn't belong to her. It belonged to my son. And in just a few minutes, he was going to remind everyone what love actually looks like. The baby shower had started out like something from a Pinterest board. It was held in my cousin's backyard, long wooden tables lined with white linen, pink balloons tied to chairs, and a mimosa bar tucked under a blooming magnolia tree. There were banners that read, "Welcome Baby Harper," and pastel cupcakes with tiny fondant rattles on top. Music drifted through a Bluetooth speaker, soft acoustic covers of old pop songs. I arrived a little late, juggling a diaper bag, a half-wrapped gift bag, and Micah, who was begging for juice the moment we stepped out of the car. My heels sank into the grass as I tried to keep my balance. Typical me, overwhelmed, under-caffeinated, and trying to smile through it all. Still, I was genuinely happy to be there. Nia deserved this. My little sister. Nia's always been the sensitive one, the dreamer, the artist. Growing up, she wrote poetry in spiral notebooks and cried during dog food commercials. I was the older one, the mature one, the fixer, the one who knew how to keep her head down when Mom got mean. When Nia found out she was pregnant and the father ghosted her, I knew what was coming. Not from the world, but from our own family, especially from Mom. Darlene has always carried herself like she was the CEO of our lives. A woman with high standards and a sharper-than-steel voice, she's the kind of mother who sees vulnerability as weakness and makes love feel like something you have to earn. And Aunt Carol? Just a quieter version of her, echoing her opinions like a shadow with lipstick. I remember the call when Nia told me she was keeping the baby. Her voice trembled. She kept apologizing. For what? For being human? For needing help? I told her I was proud of her, that she was brave, that this baby, this little girl growing inside her, would be the best thing that ever happened to her. She cried. I did too. So when the idea of a baby shower came up, I took charge. I helped pick the colors, made the guest list, sent out the invites. I wanted to give Nia one day, just one, where she felt like she mattered, like her choice wasn't a mistake, like she wasn't alone. And for a little while, it worked. She glowed as she greeted people, her cheeks flushed and her laugh easy. Even Mom kept her opinions on a leash, for the first hour at least, but you could feel the undercurrent. It's always there with my family. The tension you can't quite name, but it pulses beneath the surface like a low drumbeat. The way people glance when someone walks away, the tight smiles, the small silences between conversations that say more than words. I was on edge, even as I smiled. My throat felt tight all afternoon, like I was bracing for impact. I kept checking on Micah, letting him sip ginger ale out of a champagne flute just to keep him occupied. He was wearing a little button-up shirt I ironed that morning, and his hair had this one curl in the front that refused to stay down no matter how much gel I used. He was my anchor, my reminder that kindness still existed, that I hadn't completely messed up at this whole parenting thing, and I think he could sense my nerves. He's always had this gift, like he reads the energy in a room better than most adults. He was watching Nia, too, watching the way her hands moved, the way she blinked too long when someone asked about the father. He didn't say anything yet, but his little body leaned into mine, like he knew something was coming. And God, something was. It happened so fast. One minute, Nia was laughing as she opened a soft pink swaddle blanket from one of our old neighbors, and the next, silence. The kind that doesn't just land, it drops. My mother's voice sliced right through the middle of the conversation like a cold wind in spring. I didn't even see her face at first, just heard the words. She's a single mother, probably doesn't even know who the father is. The laughter around us halted, not all at once, but in a domino effect. A few chuckled. A few guests looked down at their drinks, pretending they hadn't heard. Others froze mid-smile, unsure how to react. I looked at Nia. Her hands stopped moving. Her shoulders, which had been relaxed, finally, for the first time in months, tensed. She didn't even look up, just stared down at the baby item in her lap, blinking too quickly. Then Aunt Carol, of course, added her voice to the mix, like an aftershock. She's just collecting sympathy gifts. Honestly, we should have thrown her a fundraiser, not a shower. My stomach twisted. I could feel my pulse in my throat. My fingers gripped the armrest of the folding chair I was sitting in, my nails digging into the cheap plastic. Did they think they were funny? Because no one was laughing. Not really. There was a smattering of nervous giggles. Those awkward little reactions people give when they don't know whether to laugh or run. A few of our cousins shifted in their seats. One woman, I think she was a coworker of Nia's, had this polite little frozen smile like she wasn't sure if this was a roast or a party. I looked at Mom. Her face was calm, smug even. She was sipping iced tea like she hadn't just sucker-punched her own daughter in front of a crowd. God, I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just sat there, trapped in my own skin, heart pounding, eyes stinging. The words were there, boiling inside me, sharp and loud, but they couldn't escape. My jaw clenched, my lips pressed into a line so thin I thought I might draw blood. Why did I always freeze? Why couldn't I just say something? This wasn't new. Darlene had always been like this, finding the softest part of you and pushing on it hard. When I got divorced, she told me it was probably for the best, because I was never wife material anyway. When Micah was born, she said, I looked tired, like a girl who got pregnant by accident. And still, I let her in. Still, I sat at her table. Still, I let my son hug her every holiday. Because I wanted peace, because I wanted family, because I didn't want to be the one who blew things up. But in that moment, with my sister sitting there, humiliated, her hands still trembling over baby gifts she could barely afford to buy herself, I hated myself for it. I hated my silence. And I could feel Micah watching me. He was sitting beside me with his tiny legs swinging from the chair, his juice cup cradled in both hands, his head tilted as he looked from me to Nia, to my mom, and then back again. He didn't say anything, not yet, but there was something brewing in his eyes, a quiet kind of fire. Something told me he wasn't going to stay quiet for long, and in the very next moment, everything changed. Micah was quiet, almost too quiet. He hadn't said a word since Mom's comment. No fidgeting, no whispering about cupcakes, just sitting there, little hands folded in his lap, eyes flicking between me and Nia like he was solving a problem only he could see. Then, without saying a word, he slid off the chair. I felt the air shift. "Micah?" I whispered, reaching for his arm gently, but he shook his head, calm and serious, in a way no 8-year-old should have to be. "I have something to give Aunt Nia," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise like a clear bell. All heads turned toward him. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Forks hovered mid-air. I glanced at Mom. She looked confused. A few guests smiled, expecting something cute. Micah walked across the grass, his sneakers softly crunching the petals that had blown off the centerpieces. He stopped right in front of Nia and reached into his tiny backpack, one of those superhero ones he insisted on carrying everywhere. From it, he pulled a small box wrapped in crinkled blue paper with a crooked bow on top. The corners were taped down with care, but clearly by tiny hands. "I brought a gift, too," he said. "It's from me and my dad." I forgot how to breathe. Micah doesn't talk about his dad often. Since the divorce, it's been a tender, complicated subject. But when he does talk about him, it's always kind, thoughtful, never bitter, even though he had every reason to be. Nia's hand went to her chest, her mouth parted like she wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Micah looked around, at the guests, at my mom, then back at his aunt. "My dad said babies are special," he continued, "and they deserve love no matter what. He told me if I ever met a baby who didn't have a dad around, I should show them what it's like to have people who care." He placed the gift in Nia's lap. "And I care about baby Harper, so this is from both of us." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was stunned. The kind of silence that wraps around a moment and holds it still, so you have no choice but to really feel it. Nia's eyes filled instantly. She didn't try to hide it. Tears rolled down her cheeks in soft, steady streaks. She opened the box slowly, carefully peeling the tape the way you do when you want to save the paper. Inside was a hand-painted baby rattle. The colors were bright but uneven, the letters slightly smudged. It read, "You are loved." That's all. 3 simple words that broke the dam. Nia let out a quiet laugh through her tears, holding the rattle to her chest like it was made of gold. I looked at my mom. Gone was the smug smile. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in confusion, like something had cracked, but she didn't know what. And me? My heart felt like it was swelling and breaking at the same time. Micah turned around, walked back to me, and sat down again like nothing had happened. He leaned against my side, his body warm, and whispered, "I just didn't want her to feel sad." I ran my fingers through his hair, blinking fast. I could barely hold it together, because somehow my 8-year-old had just done what generations of women in our family never could. He spoke up when it mattered, and he did it with love. You could hear the breeze again. That's how quiet it got. Even the leaves rustling through the magnolia trees seemed louder than the people standing around us. Nia was still crying, not sobbing, not loud, just silent tears that kept coming. Her hands were wrapped around Micah's gift like it was the most precious thing she'd ever held. Her whole body seemed to soften, like for the first time all day, someone had told her she mattered, and meant it. I looked around the yard. Guests who were just snickering minutes ago were now shifting uncomfortably in their seats. A few looked down at their drinks. One woman wiped the corner of her eye, trying not to make a scene. No one was laughing anymore. And then, all eyes landed on my mom. Darlene sat stiff in her chair, one hand still resting on her glass of tea, her smile gone, not replaced by anger. No, that would have made sense. But what I saw in her face was something different. It was shame. Real, undeniable shame. Her eyes met mine. For a second, I thought I saw her flinch. She looked like she wanted to say something, anything. But nothing came out. Not even the usual sharp comeback. Just silence. For the first time in my life, my mother didn't have a response. And maybe that's what made the moment feel so huge. Because Darlene always had something to say. She wielded words like weapons, slicing, precise, unforgiving. But Micah's quiet, honest kindness, she had no defense against that. There was nothing to mock, nothing to spin. Just a little boy who had spoken from a place so pure that it disarmed everyone in that backyard, even her. Nia looked up at Micah and smiled through her tears. "You have no idea how much I needed that," she whispered. Micah beamed. He didn't need to understand the gravity of what he'd just done. He just needed to know it helped. And he did. And then, for the first time in hours, I stood up. I walked over and knelt beside Nia, resting a hand on her knee. "You're not alone," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "You've never been, and no one gets to shame you for choosing to be a mom." My voice was shaking, but I felt strong. I looked directly at my mother when I said it, and for once, she didn't look back like she was challenging me. She just stared, hollow and quiet. I stood up straight and added, "This baby is already more loved than she'll ever know, and I don't care who's uncomfortable hearing that." There it was. The moment I'd waited my whole life for, not to tear my mother down, but to finally stop protecting her comfort at the cost of someone else's pain. And the most powerful part? I hadn't even been the one to start it. Micah had, my child, raised in love, through pain, through divorce and healing, had reminded everyone in that backyard what compassion actually looks like. And in doing so, he gave me the courage to finally speak. The crowd slowly began to clap, not a dramatic movie moment kind of clap, but a real one, honest, raw. A few people came over to hug Nia. Someone passed her a tissue. A couple guests started whispering apologies. One even said, "I'm sorry I laughed earlier." That was wrong. The air shifted. Not completely, not forever, but just enough to breathe again, just enough to hope. The baby shower ended quietly. There was no big speech, no dramatic confrontation, just soft conversations, people helping pack up leftovers, and Nia holding on to that little, hand-painted rattle like it was the most important gift she'd ever received. And maybe it was. Mom didn't say another word that day. Not to Nia, not to me, not even to Micah. She just sat there for a while, her lips pressed tight, watching the way people had shifted, how the room she used to command with rolled eyes and cutting remarks no longer moved with her mood. Eventually, she stood up, straightened her cardigan, and left without saying goodbye. I won't lie. I felt relief watching her walk out, but also sadness. Because deep down, I still wanted her to get it, to realize what she had done, to see the weight her words carried and how they buried the people she claimed to love. I don't know if that moment ever came for her. She never apologized, but she also hasn't spoken with that kind of venom since. Maybe that's something. Maybe it's not enough. But what I do know is this. That day changed something in me. For years, I played the quiet role, the one who held the peace, the one who swallowed words to keep the family from cracking down the middle. But peace kept at the expense of kindness isn't peace at all. It's silence. And silence lets damage grow in the dark. Micah taught me that. I still think about the way he stood there, small but fearless, offering love in a place where judgment had just been thrown like daggers. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't call anyone out. He just showed up with gentleness. And it was louder than any insult could ever be. And Nia? She's stronger now. She told me later that it wasn't just Mom's comment that hurt. It was the way everyone let it sit there, the way it echoed in the silence. But Micah's voice? That erased it. He gave her something our family rarely did, a moment of unconditional support. Baby Harper was born 2 months later. Full head of curls, lungs like a fire truck, and the same curious eyes Nia had when she was little. And that rattle Micah made? It's still on her dresser, sitting right next to a framed photo of the three of them, Nia, Harper, and Micah. Micah says she's his cousin, but he treats her like a little sister. Protective, playful, always whispering secrets into her tiny ears when he thinks no one's looking. And me? I'm learning. Still unlearning, too. Still figuring out how to raise a child with softness when I was raised in sharp corners. But I'm proud, not of being the perfect mom, I'm far from it, but of raising a boy who sees the cracks and doesn't run from them, a boy who fills them with love. You know, I used to believe that standing up for someone meant fighting, arguing, proving a point. But that day, I learned it can be as simple as a gift, a few words, a moment of heart when everyone else goes cold. So if you ever find yourself in a room where someone's being broken down, whether with words or with silence, remember this. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is love someone anyway. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you or reminded you of a moment in your own life, please let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories mean more to me than you know. If you believe in kindness, in speaking up when it counts, and in breaking cycles for the next generation, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you'd like to hear more true, real-life stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss when a new one drops. This channel is a place for honesty, healing, and heart, and I'm so glad you're here. Take care of yourself and each other.